Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry Saravia at the movies. So today we're talking about Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, which is celebrating its 30th anniversary today, May 16th. Released back in 1992. Written and directed, of course, by David Lynch. Based on the Twin Peaks soap opera series, if you want to call it that, and kind of is in that sort of that category, like mystery, horror, surreal drama type TV series, created by Mark Frost and David Lynch, that lasted 2 seasons. If you recall, of course, the show begins with the discovery of Laura Palmer's body. Laura Palmer played by Cheryl Lee, and she's wrapped in plastic. So famous opening lines, and the rest of the show, at least the first season, I don't know if into the second, I can't remember, dealt with trying to find out who killed Laura Palmer. So of course we meet a variety of characters in this town of Twin Peaks, not the least of which is of course Sherilyn Fenn as Audrey Horne, Lara Flynn Boyle as Donna, Peggy Lipton as Norma Jennings, so on and so forth. Then we get characters like the Log Lady and the One-Armed Man, and there's Laura Palmer's father, and so on and so forth, played by Ray Wise. So the show I never really cared for. I saw the first 2 seasons years ago, and that was after I'd seen the film Fire Walk With Me on video, because I was very interested. I love that world of Twin Peaks. And back in the day when it came out, I think I saw the first few episodes of the show, and then I lost interest in it. And I wasn't really a full-fledged David Lynch fan at that time. So, cut to 1992, which was roughly about a year after the Twin Peaks show ended. The ratings did start to decline for that show, because I think once they discovered who killed Laura Palmer, the show, well, lost some viewers, I believe. Although it did end in probably the most bizarre final episode of any show in history on television. I mean, to this day, I still don't even know what to make of that ending, but it certainly led the way to Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. Now, the film itself was considered to be bad. It was booed rather than ballyhooed at the Cannes Film Festival, panned by most American critics, resulting in poor box office. And needless to say, probably because it was just too soon to have a Twin Peaks movie, of all things. But that's a shame, because this film has easily Cheryl Lee's, probably her definitive performance as Laura Palmer, but was also the most interesting and rather bizarre portrayal of a teenager in crisis that I think I've seen, particularly in films. I would even compare it to Timothy Hutton's complex teen character in Ordinary People, which of course is a vastly different film. But we're talking about the portrayal more than anything else. Now, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me is of course a prequel. So it's about the days leading to Laura Palmer's murder by, spoiler alert, her father, played by Ray Wise in the film. Now, the film does start off badly. I mean, this is one of my favorite David Lynch films, but I have to admit, it does fall short of Lost Highway and certainly Eraserhead and Mulholland Drive, to say the least, which I think was the best film of the 2000 decade. But that's neither here nor there. It doesn't start off well. Chris Isaac plays an FBI agent, which is a very strange casting, but that goes with, the casting with most of the characters in the film. So he's an FBI agent who's arresting teens in a school bus in Fargo, and then he's called by his superior, played of course by David Lynch, to investigate the murder of Teresa Banks, played by Pamela Gidley. And it's in a town as exceptionally creepy as Twin Peaks. So Isaac brings along a nervous doctor, played by Kiefer Sutherland, who's always twitching, and to help perform the autopsy. Then you have Harry Dean Stanton as a trailer park manager. And when you have Harry Dean Stanton in a movie, you know nothing is quite normal, to say the least. There's a scene early on that features a woman dressed in red with a red hairdo, and she pouts and makes all these gestures, and it looked to me like, and it still does, like a parody of a David Lynch film. So apparently all these gestures that she makes suggests to the FBI agent who explains it to the autopsy guy, particularly the Blue Rose, that everything is a signal of what to expect when they go to this town to do the autopsy. It's very near parody, to be sure. At least it feels like it. Then something happens to Chris Isaac, who investigates the trailer park, and the film freeze frames on him. So the suggestion is that something happened, and it may have something to do with electricity, and that's where I can leave it there, because I'm not exactly sure. Nonetheless, we enter Kyle McLaughlin as Agent Cooper, who, by the way, does not really have much of a role in this film, nor does David Lynch himself. And he's sent to investigate the mysterious disappearance of Isaac, the FBI agent. Now, the film, to me, really picks up speed during the, I guess you could call it the second act, set 1 year later in Twin Peaks. And this is Laura Palmer and her story. And she is depicted as one of the most popular, sexiest students at Twin Peaks High School. But appearances always conceal the truth. And apparently she's a cokehead, has several boyfriends, and attends late-night sex clubs in the Canadian border. And her home life is not much better than her lifestyle. Laura's mother is Sarah Palmer, played by Grace Zabriskie, who's, of course, doing a reprise of her role from the show. And she's bordering towards insanity. And her father, Leland Palmer, played once again by Ray Wise, is abusive and strict towards her, resulting in one heck of a dysfunctional family. The only sign of normalcy for Laura is really her devoted best friend, Donna Hayward, who in this film is played by Maura Kelly, who's actually not bad. She's very good in the film. And she's trying to come to terms, that is Donna, with Laura's decadent side. Now, what I find quite invigorating about Twin Peaks, Fire Walk With Me, is the unpredictable narrative that confusingly leaps all over the place. But confusion is part of the narrative for David Lynch in general. And because at one point there's a flashback showing David Bowie, some lost FBI agent who knows something about the strange forces at bay in Twin Peaks, presumably. And this scene itself, which is powerful, but not really clear, although some of the lines in it are very clear when you look back again at the film after you've seen it the first time. The scene was enlarged in the, or I should say it's part of the missing scenes. In other words, it was trimmed heavily from what was shown in the DVD by Criterion Collection. Although I'm still unclear as to what the heck is really going on, because when you look at David Bowie in the film, he looks like some guy who's just lost, wearing a, it's like, who is this guy? Is he ready to sing a song for us? So, now, that's quite surreal. Then there are Laura's surrealistic, haunting nightmares. By the way, the David Bowie character then suddenly disappears, which might be through electricity. I don't know. David Lynch would have to explain that to all of you, because I can't figure it out yet. Nonetheless, Laura has nightmares of some otherworldly presence. This includes a red-suited dwarf, Michael Anderson, who, of course, back from the TV series, commenting on Formica tables. Now, that's definitely a clue. And young boys wearing strange white masks with Pinocchio noses are seen in the film. In fact, one of them removes the Pinocchio nose mask, shows his face, and then puts it back on, and then removes it again, and then there's a monkey, which I still haven't quite figured out either. Then there are angels in waiting. There's framed pictures of doorways leading somewhere, particularly in Laura Palmer's house. So the movie feels like a never-ending nightmare, and it is to Lynch's credit that he doesn't suffuse it with tongue-in-cheek humor or deliberate winks to the audience as if it was all a joke. That may have been part of what hindered Wild at Heart, which came out in 1990, which I still like. It's a very good, hell on wheels type road movie, but the tongue-in-cheek humor in that went maybe a little too far. Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, really, I see it as a dark fable about self-revelation, incest, murderous impulses, and depravity in small-town America. And in many ways, I find it even more vivid of a journey on that level than what I saw in, and I'm about to re-review at some point soon, Blue Velvet, which might have been slightly overrated to me, but I will check out again and re-review it nonetheless. The casting is impeccable in this film, I have to say. Cheryl Lee exhibits layers of sincerity, lustfulness, heartbreak and denial with breathtaking vigor. I mean, Laura Palmer, is a tortured soul in need of nurturing. Again, this is an amazing, amazing performance. I mean, I am shocked that the critics who found this film deplorable didn't at least highlight Cheryl Lee. As someone I know who will be mentioned here, Tim, I agree with you. She deserved an Oscar nomination. She is that good. Ray Wise scarily depicts a seething madman in Leland, yet seems normal enough to pass as an average dad, which, again, another amazing performance. Wise and Lee's scenes are intense and dramatic to witness, in the most twisted father-daughter relationship you'll ever see, for sure. Moira Kelly, again, I think she's actually more convincing than I thought before. I've seen Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me a few times as Laura's best friend. I think maybe at the end of the day, Lara Flynn Boyle would have been a better choice. But actually, she's better than I had remembered. Even though I didn't always pay attention to her performance, but I always thought she wasn't convincing enough, but I think she does work. And as I mentioned before, Mclaughlin just has a sharp cameo as Agent Cooper. He sort of floats in and out of the story, in addition to Miguel Ferrer, the late Miguel Ferrer, I should say, as the competitive FBI agent. Audrey Horne is not to be found in this film. I don't think she's in the missing scenes. I could be wrong. Peggy Lynch appears, but in the missing scenes. So there are a lot of characters from the show that show up in the missing scenes, but were not featured in the film. And, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will talk about two standout sequences. Most people agree these are two sequences that truly, truly stand out. The strobe-lit club party on the Canadian border that Laura Palmer and her friend Donna attend, where they basically undress, and then there's also the Pulaski girl that's there. They undress, they dance naked, and, there's sex and all sorts of things involved. It is truly a stunning sequence. I mean, it's one of the most stunning sequences ever. And the music is played real loud, so what we have are subtitles on screen, so you can understand what the characters are saying, which is perfectly apropos. Anytime you are at a club, you'll know that if the music is loud, or you watch a band performing, you can't hear each other. You have to sort of yell at each other to hear each other speak. So that sequence in itself, not to mention the harrowing encounter with the one-armed man, played by Al Strobel, during a traffic jam. That scene in itself is punctuated by the traffic noises, the cars, and his trying to tell. He confronts Leland Palmer, who's in the car waiting for this old man to cross the road, and he's revealing things like, it's your father. He may have killed, this girl. And he's not saying too much, but he says just enough. And Laura Palmer is confused, doesn't know what the hell's going on. That sequence was amazing. But Angelo Badalamenti's eerie score, in particular during the club party, that score in itself, that musical piece, is tremendous. The sound design in this film is amazing, as always for David Lynch, who pays particular attention to sound. It really, truly, it's nerve-frying. It's, in many ways, this is superior to the show. It just is. But the Twin Peaks: The Return, which I still haven't finished watching just yet, I do have that on DVD, and I will one of these days, matches what Fire Walk With Me has. Not just the weirdness, which of course we come to expect from David Lynch, but the bizarre energy that runs through the film. Everything's underscored in such a way as like there's a rumble and you're not sure what's going to happen, but you know that because of the performances that match the pacing, the rhythm, you really feel this descent for Laura Palmer into drugs, decadence, and madness. It's thrillingly realized by David Lynch. And to me, the most unforgettable character of David Lynch's film since Henry in Eraserhead. That's what I got to say about that. I wouldn't call Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me a really great film, but it's very good. So despite its flaws and an opening act that doesn't always work, despite it being watchable, I will say, it's not unwatchable, the opening act, but it's not the best opening act, I think, for this film. And I also should mention Pamela Gidley, who has a few notable moments as Teresa Palmer. But most of this film is just it's just intense, and it really fries your nerves. And it's in the best tradition of David Lynch in that sense, especially the train sequence, which is we're inside one of the train cars where Leland Palmer basically kills Laura Palmer. That sequence in and of itself, plus seeing the angels, just amazing stuff. And definitely worth seeing. So, yes, 30 years. Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and it's become a cult film in many ways. People still talk about it, as they do with many of David Lynch's films. But it's certainly a precursor to what he eventually did with Twin Peaks: The Return, and not to mention a precursor to Lost Highway, which is also an amazing film, not to mention Mulholland Drive. So Mulholland Drive and Eraserhead to me are top tier David Lynch. But this one certainly falls somewhere in the margins of greatness, but it not quite a great film, but very good one nonetheless. So I hope you liked what I had to say. And if you like what my reviews, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll be doing more of these. I've written several thousand reviews at this point in my lifetime. I wrote this review of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me quite a number of years ago. But again, if you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe. And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.